Welcome to the Deep Dive. We unpack complex topics and pull out the most valuable insights just for you. Today we're diving into, well, the really vital world of media literacy and critical thinking. Our guide is Dr. Seema Yasmin's book, What the Fact? Finding the Truth in All the Noise, and also its teaching guide from the Pulitzer Center. You know, information spreads so fast now, it's like trying to tell truth from fiction feels almost impossible sometimes. So our mission today, give you a kind of roadmap, understanding how information works, why we believe certain things, and importantly, what practical steps you can take to become more informed, more critical, maybe more resilient as a truth seeker. You'll get tools not just for spotting lies, but also for, talking productively when you disagree with someone.
It's a huge challenge, isn't it? That
Yeah.
daily flood of information. It can be just overwhelming. So this deep dive, it's really about cutting through all that noise. We'll get into some fundamental questions like, what is a fact, really? How do you spot reliable sources? And, how can you make sense of it all without feeling completely lost? The idea is to empower you, giving the language, the context, the evidence, so you can sort fact from fiction confidently. Not just for you, but for your community, too.
Okay, so let's really dig into this then. Why is a book like The Fact
Yeah.
so important right now? I mean, obviously for young people, but the sources suggest it's really for everyone.
Yeah, the sources paint a pretty clear picture. A lot of people, students included, seem to struggle, identifying false info, figuring out source bias, even just telling the difference between news opinion and an ad. There was that Stanford study. Fewer than 4% of high schoolers looked beyond the surface of a climate change website. They completely missed its ties to the fossil fuel industry because they didn't check the funding. So what does that really tell us? What are the implications? That Stanford study, yeah, it's a bit of a wake-up call, isn't it? If young people who basically grew up online are finding this tricky, well, it just highlights that we all need these skills, universally. The book, it kind of positions itself as a frontline defense against all that viral misinformation flying around. It's designed to help you, avoid falling for hoaxes, maybe re-engage with news if you've gotten cynical, and just feel more confident sorting out what's true for yourself. It's like building mental immunity.
Right, mental immunity, I like that. And what I think is really smart is how adaptable the book is. It works across different subjects, like for language arts or journalism folks, it shows the power of language, how to analyze text deeply. It even gets into the history of journalism, encouraging critical thinking, but not, just knee-jerk skepticism.
Exactly.
And then for social studies, it's about civic competence. It shows how falsehoods aren't new. They've been around forever. Think 17th century European myths, racist pseudoscience, Cold War propaganda. It connects the dots historically.
And for the STEM side,
Well, Dr. Yasmin's a medical doctor, an epidemiologist, right? So she grounds it in evidence. She explains the brain science, how we process info, how math can sometimes be used to mislead, like messing with a graph's axis to exaggerate something.
oh yeah, the classic misleading chart trick.
Exactly. And how social media algorithms tap into our brain's reward system, our dopamine pathways. The message is clear. Be like the best scientists. Constantly, enthusiastically question the world around you. Okay, so one of the first big steps Dr. Yasmin points out is using precise language. We throw around terms like fake news, but that can actually muddy the waters, right? It obscures how this stuff really spreads. And this is where it gets really practical, I think. The book makes clear distinctions between different types of false content. Why is that vocabulary so key?
It really is key. It's about giving you a better toolkit, a more nuanced vocabulary to spot what's happening and respond effectively. We tend to lump it all together, but the distinctions are important. So first, you have misinformation, this false stuff, but spread unintentionally. The person sharing it, they genuinely think it's true. They're not trying to cause harm. Like, remember all those posts about garlic preventing COVID? That friend sharing it probably truly believed it. That's misinformation. We've all seen that, right?
Oh, definitely. In the family group chat, for sure.
Exactly. Then there's disinformation. Now, this is different. This is false information known to be false and spread specifically to cause harm. Malicious intent. The sources mention examples like disinformation campaigns during the Ebola crisis in West Africa, and of course, all through the COVID pandemic. Calculated deception.
Okay, so intent is the big difference there.
Right. And the third one is malinformation. This one's tricky. It's actually accurate information, but it's shared out of context, or maybe it wasn't meant for the public eye. And it's shared, again, with the intent to harm someone or something. So it's reality-based, but weaponized, like twisting a photo's meaning or leaking a private message way out of context.
Weaponized reality. That's a chilling phrase.
Right.
And this ties into that idea the book mentions about information spreading like a contagious virus. information contagion,
Yeah.
how ideas, rumors, lies, they just spread person to person, mutating as they go, just like a real virus.
It's a powerful metaphor.
Yeah, and the example they give is wild. Engineers in Peru kidnapped because of some bizarre conspiracy theory linking 5G to coronavirus. It just shows the real tangible danger these things can pose.
Absolutely. That example really hammers home why we need to understand not just what's being shared, but why we sometimes fall for it. Which brings us really to our own minds. How do we know what we know? And why are we, well, sometimes susceptible to BS? The book really pushes us to acknowledge our own biases. Look, everyone has them. They can be useful mental shortcuts, actually. But if we don't acknowledge them, they make us way more vulnerable to misinformation. So the advice is question stuff that confirms what you already believe just as hard as you question stuff that surprises you, maybe even harder.
It's tough to do, though, questioning your own confirmations. And the book digs into all the different types, right? Implicit bias, confirmation bias, assimilation bias, even that Dunning-Kruger effect where, people who know the least about something tend to be the most confident in their expertise.
Oh, yes, the Dunning-Kruger effect. We see that online a lot.
For sure. And it explores the social, the biological factors behind these biases, how storytelling affects our brains. Dr. Yasmin makes a great point, just throwing facts at someone, often not enough to change their mind.
Right. Facts alone don't always cut it.
It's about understanding what makes information feel compelling, emotionally resonant to you specifically.
And, to understand the landscape today, we also need to understand how we got here. The history matters. The book gives this fascinating overview of journalism history in the U.S., from the early partisan pamphlets, then the commercial penny press, moving towards professionalization and this ideal of objectivity.
Objectivity, which itself isn't straightforward.
Exactly. The book points out critically how marginalized groups often pushed back against so-called neutral journalism, arguing, that sometimes neutrality just reinforces an unfair status quo. It also touches on concepts like propaganda, satire, agenda setting, gatekeeping, all these things that shape the news we get.
And then, boom, social media lands on top of all that history. The book really breaks down how platform algorithms are, engineered. They're designed to hook into our brain's reward system, that dopamine hit.
Keeps you scrolling.
Right. And sometimes that can inadvertently lead people down rabbit holes towards more extreme content, radicalization. It really pushes you to ask, who is designing these algorithms? How do they make money? And what's the impact on our mental health, our privacy? It's crucial to remember there are humans with specific interests curating what you see online. It's not neutral ground.
It definitely isn't. Okay, so we've talked about the problems, the history, the psychology. It might feel a bit heavy, but the real power here, I think, both in the book and what we're aiming for in this deep dive, is the practical stuff, the tools. The book lays out these media literacy lessons. Let's maybe unpack a few key ones.
Yeah, let's get practical. What can people actually do?
Okay, first, recognize common strategies. Know the tactics used to mislead. Like that FLICC taxonomy. It's an acronym for fake experts, logical fallacies, impossible expectations, cherry picking, and conspiracy theories.
FLICC. Okay. Cherry picking seems especially sneaky.
Yeah.
Using real facts, but selectively.
Totally. Because it feels factual, just incomplete. Knowing these tactics is step one in debunking. Second, do your own fact-checking. Simple, but powerful. Every claim, every piece of data has an origin. Trace it back. Where did this actually come from? Building this habit, it really boosts your confidence over time. You get better at spotting weak sources.
Makes sense. Become your own detective.
Third, build an intentional news diet. Think about what you consume. Actively design it. Get nourishing information. Try to avoid the junk food news, the constant distractions. And importantly, gently push yourself out of your echo chamber. Expose yourself to different, credible perspectives.
Easier said than done sometimes, but crucial. Okay, what else?
Fourth, pay attention to the storytellers. Who is telling the story? Actively seek out diverse voices, diverse journalists. Their backgrounds, their experiences, they shape which stories get told and how. Journalism, historically, hasn't been very diverse, so broadening your sources gives you a much richer, more complete picture.
That's a really important point. Whose voices are we hearing and whose aren't we?
Fifth, take control of your social media. Be mindful. How much time are you spending? And crucially, how do these platforms actually make you feel? Maybe even explore some platforms beyond the usual big profit-driven ones. See what else is out there.
A digital detox, or at least a digital diet adjustment.
Kind of. And finally, number 6, practice active listening. This is huge for disagreements. There's a technique called looping. Basically, you listen deeply, then reflect back what you heard in your own words. So if I understand you correctly, you're saying, huh. It
Yeah.
does a couple of things. It lowers the tension, makes the other person feel heard, not attacked. And sometimes it even helps them hear their own points more clearly, maybe spot inconsistencies themselves.
Looping. Okay, that sounds like a really valuable skill, not just for media literacy, but for life. This is all incredibly helpful. And, it's encouraging, too. The book emphasizes you're not fighting this battle alone.
Right.
And that stat you mentioned earlier, or that the sources mentioned, researchers estimate only, 0.15% of news consumed in the U.S. is actually fake?
Yeah, it's surprisingly low, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
It kind of reframes the problem. It's not that everything is fake. So the goal isn't to become this super cynic who distrusts absolutely everything. It's about being informed,
Yeah.
being a proactive truth seeker. So wrapping this up, what's the big takeaway for you listening right now? This
Yeah.
deep dive into what the fact really shows that media literacy, it's not just some academic term. It's a fundamental life skill, essential for navigating the world today. It's about knowing that knowledge has power, especially when you understand it and can apply it, and realizing there's always more to learn.
Absolutely. And connecting it to the bigger picture, mastering these skills. It helps you make better decisions in your own life. It helps you understand other people more deeply, maybe engage more constructively in your community, online and off. Think about it. Every time you pause, reflect, check a source, listen actively, you're not just helping yourself. You're actively pushing back against falsehoods and stereotypes. You're making the information environment a little bit healthier.
Right. The sources really drive home that you are the solution, or at least a crucial part of it. Critical thinking plus an open mind. That's how we build a better ecosystem for information for everyone.
So here's a final thought to leave you with. We talked about information spreading like a virus, right? Well, now you're armed with better tools, more precise language. How could you proactively become a kind of media literacy super spreader? How could you make your own critical thinking skills contagious, in the best possible way in your daily conversations and interactions? Something to think about. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.